This just is deja vu all over again, as I said. I mean, this is Hillary Care Plus.
This bill has just been accused of being somewhere or another a combination between Rube Goldberg and Karl Marx. However, our current system is a combination of Adam Smith, Darth Vader, and the invasion of the body snatchers.
Just some of the fireworks there in the Help Committee up in the Senate as they try to hammer out the very complex issue of health care reform, which may seem a little bit further away than the White House hoped at this point.
And if you put Rube Goldberg and Darth Vader in one sentence, we're going to play your soundbite. Top Line starts right now.
Welcome to ABCNews.com's Top Line. I'm David Chalian.
And I'm Rick Klein.
Each weekday at noon Eastern, we're bringing you the latest political headlines, reporting, analysis, insight, everything you need to know before you head out the door to lunch.
And we know this is the best 15 minutes of your day as well. And if you want to keep that conversation going, it's twitter.com/the note. Let us know what you think.
Excellent. Kick us off, Rick. What's your top line?
Poll positioning. New polls out today from both NBC and CBS highlight some real problems for the Obama agenda. He has very high approval ratings. That has not really budged significantly, but far less support for a lot of the big items on the Obama agenda, up to and including health care, and a lot of worry out there about spending and the deficit. If this debate over health care just becomes one over spending, it's hard to see how Obama wins that argument.
We saw that whole overall issue of government control inside the economy, whether it's autos or elsewhere, that is giving a lot of Americans great concern. Warning signs. This healthcare reform effort may be having a few obstacles thrown in its way. We see now that the Finance Committee is slowing down its process on the spending side of this, how to pay for healthcare. Also, as Rick just mentioned, these polls, take example, a CBS News poll that shows the president at 62% popularity, but his approval of healthcare is down at 44%. That is a wide gap. And of course, prominent Democrats like this morning, Howard Dean, once again saying that if you don't have a public option, it's not worth spending the $1 trillion on.
Something he said on our program just a few weeks ago. Also to point out on this, things are almost slowed to a stop on the Hill right now in the Finance Committee. Some real problems with getting that done. I think that is as much a worrisome sign as anything else right now for how far this thing can go. Rights and benefits. Some movement, but probably not nearly enough for the left on gay rights. President Obama signing an executive order last night that extends some federal benefits to the same-sex couples of who are federal workers, but not health care because of the Defense of Marriage Act, and not pensions either because of some limitations there. It's hard to see how this does anything to really quiet the firestorm that's emerging on the left over this.
In fact, I think it may have ignited some folks a little bit further. And the RNC takes on ABC. Yes, right here, we're a bit of a punching bag for the GOP in advance of a town hall type event that we are hosting next week at the White House with President Obama, one in which we are seeking a wide range of opinions on healthcare across the country to plan to sort of probe and poke at his plans in an hour-long primetime event with Charlie Gibson and Diane Sawyer. But the RNC felt that this was the opportunity to sort of beat us up a little bit, drum up support, fundraise off of it, since they're not happy that they don't have a seat next to the president on that event.
And note to Chairman Steele, you're raising money off of this. If you want your point of view, sit down in this chair. We'll have you on anytime, any place. We'll have you.
Exactly right. But we begin with the huge healthcare debate that is taking place up on the Hill right now. We are joined by a special guest here who's in town, Jonathan Cohn, senior editor of The New Republic and an expert on this topic. So let's begin just with your overall impressions of that markup committee yesterday. You saw people sort of mark out their positions on where we're going with this debate. In anything you saw yesterday, did you see a glimmer of, oh, that's where the compromise is going to be? I see how this is going to get done.
Well, if you're looking for a bipartisan compromise on the bill that went before the Help Committee yesterday, it did not look good yesterday. I was there. Senator Dodd started the session. He was about 30 seconds into his opening statement, and we had Republicans interrupting him, respectfully, but interrupting him, saying, this is not our bill. We're rushing ahead too fast. We don't like this. So if you were going to the Help Committee and you were looking for hope of a bipartisan compromise, you were disappointed yesterday.
And on your blog at The New Republic, you put the panic light on.
I did.
But now you said you're taking it off.
We're going to take it off later. We're breaking some news here. We are going to take the panic light off at the end of the day. in part to get a little perspective on things. Look, this is the first time we are really dealing with the hard parts of reform. Okay, we're having to say, this is how we pay for it, this is where the money is going to come from. So far, everyone's been saying nice things, all the interest groups have been playing well, and now we see we get to the hard stuff. So there's going to be some bumps. Everybody expected that. The question is how you deal with it. The one reason I'm very hopeful is we are going to see the White House engaged. Not trying to give a plug to your town hall or anything, but so far Obama has really been playing an inside game on health care. I mean, he's been talking to interest groups, he's been letting Congress do its thing. What we're seeing now is we are going to see him do this town hall. We're going to see him getting out to the public and selling the plan. And one thing to keep in mind, if you think about the dynamics, I mean, we all make the analogies back to the Clinton health care plan. And actually, we have an article in our issue this week by Stanley Greenberg, who was Clinton's pollster, in which he says, you know what? The poll numbers look exactly like they did. And that was very sobering. I have to say, you know, I heard we were doing that article. It's like, great. And I said, oh, no. One thing to remember, though, is that Clinton was already becoming pretty unpopular by the time he had to push his health care plan. And you mentioned that Obama's popularity ratings are very high. There is reason to think that he can pull those numbers up on health care much more than Clinton could.
I want to turn your attention to this bipartisan policy center yesterday. Former Senate Majority Leaders Howard Baker, Tom Daschle, Bob Dole got together, put out a plan there. Tom Daschle, it seems to me, sort of put a dagger into this idea of a public option yesterday. He basically folded on it and said, if we're going to get any kind of agreement here in any sort of bipartisan fashion so that it's accepted widely around the country, perhaps we have to punt the public option as something the states need to deal with and not do it federally. He kind of signed on with that, even though he says he's still in favor personally of a public option. This was the guy that was going to head up healthcare in this White House that's folding on this key principle the president says he wants in there.
Well, let's keep two things in mind. First of all, like you said, I think he is right. If you want to get a bipartisan deal, a broadly bipartisan deal, it's going to be hard to get a strong public plan. I would not say that is the same thing as saying that to get a broadly acceptable plan to the country. You know, there was a poll hidden in that same poll, and this surprised a lot of people. They asked, do you want a public plan in healthcare reform? The numbers were overwhelmingly yes, and that's been consistent. If you look at the poll numbers, I mean, it depends a little on how you word the question.
If you say government plan will be
If you say it's a government-run plan, but if you present it as, do you want the option of a public plan in which you can enroll, the numbers are very high. So it is true that in Congress, this is very controversial. It's not clear to me it's so controversial in the country at large. But, you know, the other thing to keep in mind is there is this question, you know, I said I'm taking the panic light off, but I'm worried. What price bipartisanship? I mean, I think you can get a bipartisan deal in this Congress. Charles Grassley, Orrin Hatch, I mean, you go down the list, there's a number of Republican senators who would sign on to a deal. But what price are they going to demand, and is it worth it? I mean, at some point, if they are not buying into the basic ideas of what you want to do with health care reform, is bipartisanship really worth it? I know they want to try. And I actually see, you know, I saw that, that plan from the Dole-Baker group. That is not a bad plan. I mean, I would like to have the public option. But overall, if you said this is what we come out of the process with, I say, you know, this is not bad. But it's not clear to me that if you look at what the Republicans yesterday in the Help Committee were saying, they weren't there. They wanted less than that. And so I say to them, hey, you know, if this is good enough for Bob Dole, it's good enough for Howard Baker, why isn't it good enough for Orrin Hatch?
And it seems like it may be good enough for the White House. They put out a very complimentary statement Robert Gibbs put out yesterday on this. I want to ask you something about the price, and that is the price tag for all of this. A lot of worry about how much this is going to cost. The Kennedy bill, which of course is an incomplete bill, north of $1 trillion over 10 years, according to the Congressional Budget Office. The Finance Committee says their initial draft, $1.6 trillion. And this isn't even solving the majority of the problem in terms of the uninsured. What can they do to rein this in? And how important is this as a political argument to get the price tag under control?
Well, I mean, I actually think it's more of a political issue than a policy issue. First of all, throw out the Kennedy estimate. I mean, I don't know why they submitted that bill. I've been using the analogy, it's like getting an estimate on building your dream house based on plans that don't have a roof, plumbing, and they're telling you need 10 contractors instead of 2. I mean, it was meaningless. I don't know why they submitted it. Just forget. Now, the finance numbers are real. And they said 1.6 trillion, although they got most of the uninsured. I mean, they got well over, I don't remember the exact number, but we're like 2/3, 3/4. And the numbers are not that far off from what people were talking about during the campaign. And frankly, if you talk to outside experts, they said all along, probably $1.5 trillion over $10. Now, I know, $1.5 trillion, that's a lot of money. But remember, we spend more than $2 trillion every year in our healthcare system. So to spend an extra $100 billion or $200 billion over the course of 10 years just isn't that much, as long as, and this is really important, as long as you're using that money to create a system that in the long run will mean we'll spend less. Now, Whether
see.
that happens,
Well,
we have to see.
that'll be the big challenge. Jonathan Cohn, senior editor of The New Republic, thank you so much for being here today. We appreciate it. Don't go anywhere. We're going to have more Top Line with Politico's Jonathan Martin in just one moment. Stay tuned.